Decoding Skills Development Legislation with your host, Darren Vandenberg. Hi, and welcome back to another legislation review. Today, I'm going to continue talking through the RPL coordination policy. And today's discussion will be a little bit longer. It's around the roles and responsibilities for the implementation of RPL. So we already spoke about the stakeholders in a previous discussion. In this discussion, the roles and responsibilities of RPL, it starts on page 12 of the coordination policy at point 31. It says, the National RPL implementation strategy relies on a number of role players and stakeholders. The key bodies are DHET, Department of Higher Education and Training, SAQA, and the three QCs, Quality Councils, the National Coordinating Mechanism, and education and training providers and practitioners. All right, so let's dive in. Responsibility of DHET, just a high-level overview. It's to provide the DHET, Department of Higher Education and Training, must provide the legislation and the policy framework, establish the National Coordinating Mechanism for RPL, establish an RPL reference group to guide the work of the National Coordinating Mechanism, establish a funding mechanism, establish, collaborate, cooperate, communicate and consider advice from SAQA and the other QCs, other quality councils, and monitor and evaluate a quarterly performance reports received from National Coordinating Mechanism. That's what they should be doing. The challenge is that too many of the QCs and the CETAs and the training providers are on too many different systems and none of them talk to each other yet, and that must be painful for the guys at the top. Anyway, all right, so the responsibility of the National Coordinating Mechanism. So this would be a department of some kind or a grouping of people of some kind. Like I spoke previously, Hong Kong have done this very, very well. When this mechanism gets up and running, I haven't been able to find it yet. My thing's not there. I haven't been able to find it. It talks about this mechanism, this group must fund manage the implementation of RPL projects. It must make sure professionalization is done in the forums with RPL practitioners and skills development. It must manage of all information submitted, submit data in a format determined by SAQA to record a national skills database. They must do research. They must support and advise a whole bunch of people. They must create or at least support and guide policy developments and help institutions create their policies, which would be very good, especially for the higher education guys. There are advocacy and communication, so they should be doing a lot more around this. Collaboration with career development services and credit accumulation, transfer, career paths, how to move between different institutions. They should be the place that learners go to for referrals. In terms of RPL, they should monitor and evaluate RPL implementation, and they should report on what's going on. Okay, so that would be for this coordination body when it gets set up. Then we go down into the responsibilities of SAQA. So the first thing about SAQA is to align its RPL policy with this policy. It's to provide overarching leadership to the quality councils regarding implementation of their own RPL policies. So pretty much SAQA would need to kind of govern the RPL policies of the QCs and make sure that their policies are actually in line with legal and in line with this policy. They provide such advice, guidance, and support to the National Coordinating Mechanism. That's not there yet, I think. SAQA needs to support the communications and advocacy initiatives of the National Coordinating Mechanism. So this National Coordinating Mechanism is actually quite important for RPL and probably should get set up pretty soon. Point E is quite interesting on page 14. Conduct a sector-wide study of a feasible and sustainable model for RPL quality assurance, including assessment, verification, and awards across the education and training institutes. SAQA must consider inputs from QC, CETAs, higher education, technical, vocational, education and training colleges, professional bodies, etc., etc. The challenge with this, though, is because learning is very much based on written tests, how well you can pass an exam, how well you can cram your frontal cortex, And applied skills, very difficult to measure, because right now it's just an assessor looking in and ticking a piece of paper. This is historically quite difficult. It's what we've created in P4P is the opportunity where videos and audio and of the RPL candidate or the learner demonstrating skill is captured and added to P4P, and then it's also maintained there for 40 years, so that this kind of thing becomes easier at any time. Any governing body, the learner and the assessor, is able to access the portfolio of evidence, not just the assessment report or tick box from the assessor, but also the verification of the applied skill. That's quite an interesting point, quite an important point to pick up it again some more. SACWA's responsibility is also to receive data uploads of RPL assessments from the QCs and record on the national database, ensure that the QCs develop certification policies, which include RPL as a route to achievement of qualification and part qualifications. So point H talks about the certification policies of the QC must state that certificates will not be differentiated based on whether the learner has achieved a certificate through RPL. Very key. Very key. So first of all, the learners must be able to achieve or receive the certificates for doing RPL. Second of all, it cannot be differentiated on the certificate that they got the certificate from RPL. This is a bit of a bugbear, because the reality is, if you only RPL for access, which means that if you want to go into an MBA but you don't have an honours, and they RPL the honours and let you do the MBA, this point here says that you should get the certificate of the honours and then enter the MBA. You should get the credits of the honours and then enter the MBA. And that's a very, very, very key point that needs to be kind of considered in the RPL initiative. Okay, so the responsibilities of the QCs, the quality councils are to develop their RPL policies, again in line with SACWA in this, and they are to work with the accredited providers to ensure that the providers have RPL policies and are implementing RPL per institution and organization. Certify the learners who have achieved their qualifications or part qualifications through RPL. Robustly advocate RPL as a means of access, articulation, and credit transfer within and between sub-frameworks, and provide quarterly reports to SACWA. So the point above says between sub-frameworks, that is saying that a learner should be able to do their qualification through an accredited provider with the QCTO, and then if they want to move towards a higher ed institution, for example at level 5, if they've only got part of those credits, that should be recognized at higher ed. That's very interesting, because currently that's not the case. So that's that the QCTOs and the quality councils should be looking at, really enabling RPL. In doing that, they I believe they're kind of confused matters, because they're trying to set up, get you registered as an RPL provider. But I'll come to another thing. I don't think that's necessary. Okay. The responsibilities of the education and training providers, which is all the training providers out there, they need to create their own RPL policies. They need to provide reports about ongoing progress of RPL students within the institution, which will further inform development of RPL research and policies. Work collaboratively with the National Coordinating Mechanism and the other bodies to help ensure the challenges and barriers to wide-scale RPL implementation become known and are mitigated, and to consider establishing an institutional forum for RPL practitioners, which will be part of the professional forum, which will be established by the National Coordinating Mechanism. Now, in this particular responsibility, very interestingly, that point B says provide reports about the progression of RPL students within the institution. And that's very difficult, especially when you have a good technology enabling you to do that, because to track RPL is a lot of work. How students are doing is a lot of work. So most providers set up, weekly, bi-weekly or monthly sessions when you all come into a room and, you just kind of cram what's going on. Part of what we've done in P4P is we've created a seamless integration of this with linked to call centers who track the learners on a weekly basis. Makes it very powerful. Okay. So those are the different role responsibilities of the role players in RPL. Fantastic. Have a good day forward and chat again soon.